Hello everyone, welcome to DevOps Info channel. Today we are going to have a look at how to plan your build tasks in the Azure Pipelines. So in the previous video we had a copy of the space game code on the local machine. We developed the copy of the space game code on the local machine which is already running in the laptop. Now in this video we will see how to migrate them to the Azure Pipelines. Before execution, we first need to think of a strategy to migrate the existing build script to the pipelines. The first thing is we need to try to map the existing scripts to the Azure pipeline tasks. So for doing all these things, we need to think of how you can do the same with your old build processes. So basically, some planning and strategy of moving them to the pipelines is required in this stage. The first task is to we need to uh, think of moving the existing build scripts, and then we also need to see there are few things which we need to consider before moving this action. The first thing is like what is the version of the OS on your build environment. For example, if you see this is my test environment, like where we have the space game which is running in locally in the laptop. So in this case, first we need to see what is the version of the OS on the build environment, what are the associated tools that is required for the build. Like for example, if you need npm, a package manager for Node.js, a .NET SDK, cascading style sheets, and if there are any other things that you need to consider, um, you need to note it down because in Azure Pipelines, a task is a packaged script or a procedure that has been abstracted with a set of inputs. So, for example, this is the current state we have. Okay, we have our code which is running locally on our laptop, and then we need to see how to move this to the pipelines. So we need to define the build process, move the scripts to the pipelines, and then get the Azure DevOps project so that we can start moving them to the Azure DevOps pipelines. So, for example, when we talk about the Azure pipelines, so here we're talking about one example, a C# project that is targeting .NET. Here is an example that uses the .NET Core CLI 2 tasks. So here in this example, on the left side, I'm defining the Azure pipeline task in the YAML file. We have on the left side YAML file, and this YAML file will translate into a script that can be used in the pipeline. So, for example, if you see all these things can be definitely moved to the pipeline when you're talking about uh, in the conversion. So, for example, on the left side, you're going to define the task in the YAML file, and the pipeline will translate this task into a command, which is you see it on the right side. For example, on the left side, we have defined the .NET code. Okay, we are going to have a look at that shortly, but this is the example I'm showing you because you can define a YAML file, and the YAML file can be defined through Visual Studio, and then that file, the functions, whatever you're defining can be translated to a to you know to a task in the pipeline. So that is the example. On the left side, you are going to define a YAML file, and on the right side, you are going to define the task how it will be running in the pipeline. So let's break down this task a bit more to understand what it has done. So on the left side, on the YAML file, you see the .NET Core CLI 2. This task will map the .NET command. So, for example, we also give the display name. This display name will define the task name that is shown in the user interface. You will see this action in soon, maybe in this video, or if the video length is far, then we will do this on the next video. And you see the input that defines the argument that are passed to the command. So command specifies to run the .NET build command. For example, you see the CS project, and you might have a question like why there is a wildcard in the CS project. The wildcard in the CS project part specifies that any uh, alias CS project file, because wildcards will let you to act on multiple files without specifying each one. If you need to act on a specific file only, then you can specify the file instead of using a wildcard. So, if for example, if we have multiple files with the extension, then you can go ahead and use the wildcard. And there might be a question that is coming why you are using at, because the at is the task name. For example, .NET Core CLI at 2, which we have defined in our example, that will refer to a task version. And as a new task version became available, then you can gradually migrate to the latest version and take advantage of new features. So, in short, pipeline as a code refers to the concept of expressing your build definitions as a code. So the next thing is, in order to move further, we need to set up a Microsoft DevOps organization to start the migration. Of course, you can use the basic process to set up Azure DevOps and create the task backlogs so that you just keep following up. We already saw this in our previous videos. So going further, to map the existing scripts to command, like there are two methods to configure, as I said. First, you need to create the multiple ways, but in our case, we are going to always talk about the YAML file in this complete series of video. So creating the YAML file, you can use the visual designer. Here you just drag task onto a form and then configure each task to do exactly what you need. I will show that what I'm going to talk about, because as I said, the YAML file is the easiest way to that's the easiest way to convert all your existing build scripts that you have it locally on your PC towards the Azure pipeline. So in the Azure pipeline, you will be basically creating a task, but in order to do that, we need support of the YAML file in our example. So a YAML is a compact format that makes it easy to structure the kind of data that is in the configuration file. So you typically maintain this YAML file directly within your app source code. It can be on your repository or anywhere. So here the two methods to configure is, you can use the Visual Designer, which is by default present in the Azure DevOps organization, which is present in your portal, or you can use the YAML file. That is a compact format that makes it easy to structure the kind of data that is in the configuration file. So you will typically maintain this YAML file directly with the app source code. So mapping the scripts to the pipeline tasks. So here, just there is one example where I'm going to talk about. Like there is a there is a YAML, there is a bash, bin bash you have created on the left side, and how we are going to transfer this to the YAML file. See on the left side, uh, locally on your PC, we have this script, so which is doing the command and creating the build file. But however, you need to think of how to move this to the Azure pipeline task. So on the left side, let's have a look at it. For example, we have install Node.js modules that is defined in the package.json, that is npm install quite. When you're defining this on the Azure pipeline tasks, you have to do it npm at one, because when we talked about at, that's the version which we saw in the previous a few minutes back. So we are putting npm at one. So the same thing, like for example, node sass, you'd be using command like cmd line 2, and gulp, you'd be using gulp at 1. So these are the mapping scripts to the pipeline tasks, so that you'll be able to um, kind of migrate your scripts locally from your laptop or from your local environment towards the Azure tasks. So this is one of the example. And in order to proceed further, what we need to do is, you need to create an environment where you can do all these tasks, because the first thing is you need to get the Azure DevOps project. So here you ensure that your organization DevOps is set up to complete the migration. You can do this by running a template that creates a project for you in the Azure DevOps. So there is a link called Azure Devops Demo Generator, where I'm going to share this with you as well. What you need to do is the moment when you use the Azure DevOps Demo Generator, you have to sign in, and then you get this page basically. On this page, you have to create a new project, and then select the Azure DevOps organization and enter the project name. Like for example, in our case, we are entering the space game, and then clicking on next. So now the build configuration is ready, where we need to create a pipeline to produce your first build artifact. Um, so now this is the first thing that you need to do, and the next thing is like you need to create a visual designer. The way how you do is like as I told, creating the YAML file. So that's the file which is required to move the migration from your local, mapping the files from your local environment. So here, the screen what you see is like this is the build configuration. You can do it in the visual designer. So here you have an option to do it from the YAML file, and okay here okay this, so here you have an option to do it from the YAML file. So when you do it as the YAML file, this will give a better experience to configure pipelines using the YAML. Or if you are more comfortable with the Visual Studio, you can always use the Visual Studio to create a YAML file, and all the Azure pipeline tasks will be entered in the YAML file. And later, you are just going to uh, create the tasks, and then that will be finally bringing the output of your tasks. This is going to be a short video, probably on the next upcoming video, because I don't want to combine the video in a very lengthy process. Uh, in the next upcoming video, we are going to create this YAML file, and using that YAML file, we are going to create the artifacts. Hope you enjoyed this video. Feel free to subscribe for getting more information on the Microsoft Cloud Platform.